U.S. Supercoach Aldon Baker has been considered a coaching god in the USA since Ricky Carmichael's dominant times. With Chase Sexton's move to KTM, the time of the former champion maker Aldon Baker seems to be over. Baker was a professional athlete on two wheels himself, albeit on cross-country mountain bikes. This is probably where his obsession with training with a racing bike comes from, which Ken Roczen once criticized. "I am a motocross professional and not a racing cyclist," the German is said to have said. Baker's coaching career in motocross began with Ricky Carmichael. The greatest of all times only became this after the red-headed American and his then-coach Johnny O'Mara persuaded Baker to train RC. Baker himself had no connection to motocross, but he developed an incredibly strict training program. Baker celebrated so many successes that he was at times able to choose which of the top stars paid a lot of money to train with him. A few years ago, a well-informed source told me that the 250cc riders were paying around $250,000 and the 450cc riders were paying up to $600,000 per year for his training program. An investment that was worth it thanks to the almost guaranteed title profits. There was a time when almost every top driver who switched to Baker also won titles. At some point, KTM and Pit Beirer also recognized this. During his career, Beirer himself was an obsessive training world champion who naturally preferred hard-working drivers. KTM not only secured Baker's services, no, they also invested in the Baker's factory. This isn't a bakery, but the training facility in Florida where Baker trains his drivers. Of course, this deal comes with a certain exclusivity, which means that Baker is only allowed to train riders who ride KTM, Husqvarna, or Gas. This, of course, limits his clientele. What made Baker's program so successful? In addition to a strict nutrition program, intensive endurance training, and an apparently pretty intense boot camp in November, the South African relied on a rather simple trick that was not common at the time. He always had his athletes train together in daily training, whether on the bike, in the gym, or on the motorcycle. In 2016, I was able to attend a training day in Corona, California at the KTM test track. Baker had Jason Anderson, Marvin Muskin, and Ryan Dungey race for 20 minutes. There was a real crackling in the air and the intensity of the three boys could really be felt. I did an interview with Dungey afterward, who told me that this was normal training. In addition to the pure training effect, Baker also helped his drivers gain incredible self-confidence. A self-confidence that led her to titles. As we know, every athlete and every person is individual. If you believe the statements of James Stewart, Adam Cianciarulo, or Ken Roczen, Baker cannot adapt his system. All three moved on from Baker relatively quickly, Roczen even in the middle of the season. As usual, the German was very articulate and clearly spoke out against Baker's system. Too rigid, too much cycling, too restricted a diet. In addition, everyone actually says that this system leads drivers to titles, but it also ruins them. Carmichael ended his career early, as did Dungey in Vio Poto. Cooper Webb recognized this problem early on and pulled the line in 2022. From then on, Webb trained without Baker, but there was initially no success in 2023. Well-informed U.S. journalists reported that KTM forced Webb to return to Baker. This is probably also a reason why Cooper switched back to Yamaha. With KTM signing of Chase Sexton, there was also the question of whether Sexton would move to Baker's training camp. But as we know, at least since our interview with Philip Ruff, Chase trains with Philip or Peter Park. Park has coached Reed and Roczen in the past and takes a different approach than Baker. While Baker lets his boys train a lot on the racing bike, Peter Park's men can be seen more often in the gym. The fact that KTM's new hope is now not training with Baker may seem like a sign that Baker's great days are over. But who knows who will be at the top of the table at the end of May? Apparently Malcolm Stewart is flying on the test track.